I'm Dr. Yvonne Cason, President of Spiritual Awakenings International. Welcome. It's wonderful to see you all today. Happy New Year to those of you we haven't seen since the new year. We are absolutely delighted that Spiritual Awakenings International continues to grow. We currently have subscribers in 113 countries around the world. So please take a moment and type into the chat where it is that you're joining us from today. We love to know where everyone's joining us from. And it is my great pleasure today to introduce our very special speaker, Dr. Dave Cumes, MD. He's a Western-trained medical doctor, a surgeon who was born in South Africa and trained in Johannesburg, specializing in urology. He later moved to the US and taught at Stanford Medical Center in California, and he currently has a private practice in Santa Barbara, California. Dr. Cumes is also a Sangoma, which is an African shaman, and he was initiated in Swaziland in 2002. He is the author of 7 fascinating books, including Inner Passages, Outer Journeys, The Spirit of Healing, and Africa in My Bones. He is a wonderful bridge between Western medicine and African indigenous healing wisdom. I turn it over to Dr. David Cumes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for that great introduction. Now I'll get straight to the thing and share my screen. Okay, so this is the menu for today. And we're going to talk about pre-death preparation and conscious living and passing over. And before I go on to the others, I just want to mention that we have some control over the first two. You know, the Buddhists say that the most profound meditation of all meditations is that on death that makes the biggest imprint on the psyche. And the Buddha, you know, he talked about the 4 rivers of suffering. That was uncontrolled birth, uncontrolled aging, uncontrolled sickness, and uncontrolled death. So this is a little about trying to control death. And Buddhists pray and practice in order to achieve an enlightened state where they can come back again in a higher vibration and carry on with their practice, or even better, inherit the pure land of Buddhism, which is the enlightened realm. So we're trying to talk about today how we can get ready before death, and that's going to be only a short part. Passing over, we also have some control. Then we're going to talk about the afterlife realms. Remember, I don't know all the picture. I just have some clues as to what's going on, mainly from my ancestors. Talking about karma, reconciliation of our karma through a spiritual tribunal of a higher order. What options do we have? And finally, the pathologies of death. In a way, that's how I came to learn about a lot of this stuff kind of through the back door. So the thing about it, this is the title, but I'm trying to make it planned and charted for you. Nobody here would go to some remote place like out in Mongolia without a guide or somebody to help them, or going online and finding out a lot of information. But most of us, I think, because of a morbid fear of death, we put it off. We're in denial of it until the last moment. And when we're in a fear-like state, you'll see that's not a good way to cross over. And Kabir said, no one dies in such a way that she or he won't die again. Essentially, what we are here for, like Kiva said, this is just an antechamber for the world to come. It's preparation for the world to come. And all of us will go through many, many lifetimes. I'm sure many of you are old souls in this audience who've been here thousands of times. And until we get it right, we keep coming back. So just a little bit about the proof, and I'm sure in this audience we don't have to talk about near-death experiences, but some of you may not know about the shared crossing experience. It's been researched here actually in Santa Barbara by William Peters, where somebody, a living loved one or somebody who's very open can go part of the way with the person who's crossing, short of crossing the veil between the worlds. Then the Tibetan Buddhists have this term called a delog or a delok, is somebody who was gone and had a near-death experience and comes back to report what they saw. The most famous is Dharma Drolma, who was dead for 5 days and then came back to tell you what the realms she saw. Remember, the person will have a completely different reality to anybody here. So don't think that you need to, copy anybody. Tibetan Buddhist martyrs can actually simulate the death process, short of cutting the cord, the silver cord that they talk about in Ecclesiastes that links the body with the soul. And the Bushmen of the Kalahari have this extraordinary out-of-body healing spirit trance dance where they leave their bodies, they climb these ropes to God, which are like the silver cord of Solomon in Ecclesiastes, and they get information from the field and they come back and then they help the clan with all the information and they do this amazing healing ritual as well. They also call it the little death because sometimes somebody who's immature and doesn't know what happens, they can lose contact with the cord and actually check out completely. When they are out of body, they lie motionless on the ground. They're completely paralytic. Then I'm going to be drawing on ancient wisdoms today. I'll just give you a little bit of a background. After my initiation as a Sangoma, a friend and a colleague, I was giving talks at the adult education for her, Mary Ellen Kelly, who was a Celt and a recovered Catholic. She started to download dreams and had an amazing ability to write it down and in verbatim, very smart woman. A lot of the wisdoms that are coming to this talk are coming from three genres of spirit: Celtic, Druid, and she had Jesuit priests who would come to her, and also Kabbalistic and Hasidic, and of course African, which was the basis from where I came. I've obviously added a lot of stuff from my own knowledge. So this is the content of the talk. It's coming from the three genres who really are interested in universals. They don't want anyone putting a stamp on anything. We're in trouble with the planet. So maybe a Buddhist won't want to listen to the teachings of Christ because they're in their own little, own little world. But this is universal wisdom, and I hope it'll apply to everybody who's listening without any, sort of contradictions. So it's all about conscious living. So the ancestors say, with all your strength, get knowledge. And this is not mathematics or science. It's the knowledge of spiritual wisdom, the rules of karma, and so on. Adopt a spiritual practice which you do regularly. Clean the slate, tend to needs and not wants more so than ever. And release from attachments. A release from attachment. This is a big one. Quite a while back, when I was first on the journey, I had this dream where a bunch of us were traveling in a boat, which was metaphorically like the river Styx. And some guy came late to the party and was standing on the bank of the river, completely naked, but with his flip-flops on. So we really are just changing address. We're going to another place, but the only thing we can take with us is our karma and our experiences. This guy was hanging on to his flip-flops. So we shouted to him to dive in and swim to us. We would pull him into the boat. And he looked at his flip-flops once and then he decided he would swim. But he was now swimming only with his arms, so it was pretty ineffective. And he lost one of his flip-flops, but he still hung on to the one. And he was holding up his foot with the flip-flop attached to it, groping it with his toe. About halfway through, there was a kind of a whirlpool that sucked him down metaphorically into the earth realm. So one thing we have to do is, get rid of attachments before we go, have no baggage. We're going to talk a little bit about dreams as proof. The Tibetan Buddhists believe that the astral imaginal that we travel to during our dream state is very similar to death. So we have death, the intermediate stage, and then rebirth, which is similar to dreamless sleep, which is usually a delta deep sleep, a REM active sleep, where we then awaken to a new day. So the dead and the living can best meet in the astral realm, the imaginal realm, in the early hours of the morning when the veil between the worlds is the least permeable. And these are usually spirits, our guides, who are reconciling with their karma, or our ancestors, or people that are earthbound. And in this practice, especially if you're a lucid dreamer, you're pretty much going to have an idea what it's going to be like in the astral realm. So, passing over, the living and the dead can assist the dying. The dead often will come to the living in a dream close to death because the veil between the worlds is much more permeable closer to death. And they might come along to reassure and say, look, we'll be waiting for you. Don't worry. It's going to be fine. The Kabbalists say that death, if you prepared, should be no more than a bee sting. It's just like a little change, a little shift in attention and consciousness. And then, of course, we can assist the dying with our consciousness, with our rituals, and so on. And the biggest thing, I think, if you go away with nothing else today, forgiveness. Ask forgiveness from those who are passing, where you need to ask, and give forgiveness if there's something that you need to give them forgiveness. And release them from any obligations, promises, or anything like that. Otherwise, they're going to rest uneasily on the other side. So this is basically the summary what I've understood from the past and from the wisdom I've learned. Our mind state is absolutely key. We basically have two minds: monkey mind, that's survival mind; primitive mind, fear-based mind, flight or fight reaction, which a lot of us are going to be in. Then we have big mind, the ancestors call it spacious mind, our higher consciousness, which is a relaxation response. We want to create the reality, a positive reality with intention. So Gandhi, for instance, when he was shot, he was heard chanting God's name, Ram, Ram, Ram. So I would recommend that, sometimes it's good to practice. Some of you, like me, on the last quarter of their lifespan. Think of a mantra that you want to hold on to, or some imagination that's positive to stop you from going into a fear spiral. We have to fearless clarity without any confusion. Release attachments, surrender, let go, sort of go into existential free fall with complete letting go and no attachment, so that we can attend to the light and the voices of the ancestors, our guides calling us home. So this is basically what I understand from the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where you're going to have to excuse my voice every now and again. The bardo is usually 49 days in the experience, and they read the They read the Book of the Dead around the body for 49 days. The first thing they want to make sure is the person knows they're dead, and they want them to go to the right place. So it's you are dead. Now, the Zulus, at least they used to have this tradition. I don't know if they do it anymore. When somebody died, they would put a branch of this tree that you see, it's called the buffalo thorn, on the grave. And the thorn that you see, a straight thorn, is pointing up to heaven, and the curved thorn is pointing into the ground, saying that, you are now dead, and your spirit must return to the ancestors, and your body is down in the ground. Sometimes, if somebody dies away from home, they'll even come and retrieve the coffin and put the branch either on top of the coffin to take the spirit back home, or even put a branch next to them on the seat. So there's less chance of them getting earthbound. So they tell them to go forward, release without fear, do not cling to images of the past or the illusory projections of monkey mind, the same sort of thing I was talking about. Recognize your own luminescence. We are all made in the image of the divine. The soul is pure. Our karma might not be pure, but the soul is completely pure. So recognize that purity. There's nothing wrong with anybody's soul. It's the karma that's our challenge. And then let go and surrender. So it's not that different. In my mind, or from what I've heard, spirits usually hang around the earth plane for approximately 30 days, not 49. But it's all a question of reality, how you create it. For closure and visitations, it can be more and it can be less. Once they cross over, it's going to be much more difficult to contact the living. So this is the opportunity that they have to script a dream, or to visit them, or to copy and paste something in their psyche so that they get a message, or that they feel they're around them. So death rituals are really important, any and all of them, to honor, to show that you were loved, to help them cross over. This is really important to do. Spirits need to know that it's okay. They may want to be hanging on because their loved ones are crying and the rest of it, but we need to be strong enough to give them permission to go. And when they're on the other side, we need to give them permission as well to go over to the other side, because if we're grieving too much, they might stick around. So spirits can visit during this early phase to announce their death. If somebody is far away, out of contact, they may come to them in a dream and say, "Call home." Or if they can't get through because the person is not receptive, they may go to somebody nearby them who is and say, "I got a dream last night. You better go home." So they also come to complain, ask for attention, unfinished business. People are quibbling about the will. They might say, "Please just listen to what I said." If they think you're cremating them rather than burying them, they say, "Come, please, I want to be buried." Always attend to their wishes. Sometimes they come for something as silly as, well, it's not silly. I forgot to tell everybody there's $50,000 hidden under my mattress, so better go and look for it. It can be very mundane. They come to reassure, and this is their last chance really to ask or give forgiveness. Later on, they can come to be a guide, but remember, there's no time on the other side. So it may take years for them to manifest as a guide. So don't be disappointed if you've made a pact with someone to come and be with you, that it takes a while. They have to go through the reconciliation process first. Okay, Buba said everyone has access to God, but we each have a different access. And the answer is there are just as many paths in life as there are in death. So we create our own reality, not only in life, but also in death. We are most likely going to go to the vibration that is familiar to us, that's part of our culture, it's part of our tradition, our religion, and so on. However, it may be that, you were a Buddhist or a Native American in a past life, so that might change, but don't have any fixed ideas of where you're going to go. There was a discussion recently just before you logged on with somebody, and it's clear that they're probably going to go to the causal realm and probably in a yoga form, although she's very westernized. So I don't know what is going to happen, but don't, the Buddha says, don't leave your religion, keep your religion, use Buddhism as a tool, because I think he probably didn't want you to get confused. So these are the realms. The celestial doesn't really apply. The lower realms we're going to talk about, they can apply. But the causal realm, it's got different names in different traditions. It's the enlightened realm, the place of perfected souls where you retain free will. You see how important this is. The astral, imaginal realm, we lose free will. Also kind of a bummer. The outer red ring is the veil between the worlds, it's sort of a metaphor. And on the green are earthbound spirits that are stuck on the earth plane. They can be voluntary or involuntary, and we are actually there too. And then there you can see the veil between the worlds. So this is very briefly an idea of what the possibilities are in the realms that we go to. Remember, there are countless realms within these realms, and all of them are going to be different depending on your tradition and your culture. So, earthbound spirits, I'm going to talk about them now. These are the involuntary ones. And mainly, we've talked about the attachments to persons, places, work, objects, but also no proper death rituals. They don't know they're dead. Fear and confusion, drugs or mind altering substances, people who have obtunded on morphine because of pain, they need to have enough not to have pain, but they shouldn't be completely out of it. Sudden traumatic death, suicide, murder, accidents, war, so on, where somebody's not prepared, of course, abortion, miscarriage, and somebody with false beliefs. And they hang around the earth plane. The commonest place is a home. Somebody dies at home. There's nothing quaint about having an earthbound spirit that can get in the way of your aura, of your energy flow. It can cause dis-ease, just like we're going to talk about intrusive spirits, can cause anxiety, depression, somatic complaints, bad luck, trouble at work, fighting in the family, trouble with relationships. They need to go. So they can be also around places of work. These may be the control freaks, they'll be at the board meeting of their business wondering why nobody's talking to them. Hospitals are full of earthbound spirits. This is probably responsible for what we call Murphy's Law, where things go wrong in hospitals with doctors, nurses, CEOs who come to have procedures, because a lot of these spirits are tricksters. They don't like the medical profession. They can mess with computers and they can move things around and so on. Of course, cemeteries, jails, warfields, bridges where people jump off, freeways that are dangerous in particular places may congregate there, and objects special to them. some guy who was completely obsessed with his Maserati is probably going to hang around his Maserati because he's so attached to it. Now, this is sometimes I'm going to quote the ancestors directly, just to give you more credence that I'm not sucking this out of my thumb. It is not unusual for one to linger between the worlds for some time after death to strengthen the spirit of the sentient being and also the one passing on. So often people are so upset, they're so grieving that the person will remain earthbound to give them support in one way or another. And also because they want to be there for their own sake. There comes a time, however, when it's not a good thing to delay transmigration of the soul, and one has to give them permission to leave, or when they feel they are no longer needed, they will leave on their own. But it does happen, and often it's more than a year. And this is some of the work that I do as a Sangoma, is getting them to go back to the light. Now, Master Eckhart said, when the soul wants to experience something, she or he, remember the soul is undifferentiated. We come back again as men and women in different forms. We usually come back in more or less the same one, which also poses some other interesting questions that we may come up later. Firstly, she or he throws out an image of the experience in front of her and then steps into it. That's what lucid dreamers are able to do, and that's what the astral imaginal is all about. It's navigated by imagination as well as will, passion, and intention. Um, there is a movie, actually, it's kind of interesting, by Robin Williams called What Dreams May Come.
Right.
And he has a guide who comes to help him, and he's trying to teach him how to navigate with the imagination, which is kind of interesting. Um, so we are carried by our heart's karma, intention, and the vibration to the vibration that we've earned. I'm going to try and move this out without kicking myself out because I can't read my own slides. That's better. We are carried by our heart's intention and karma to the vibration we've earned. We lose touch with other vibrations. So as Jesus said, as you sow, so you reap. Those that will be first will be last. The ancestors once came and said, let them come along and shout. They will shout their name last. So we will earn where we want to go. We want to be sure we don't go to a low vibration. And that's the point of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. They want to be sure you go to the one that you've earned. We go in the direction of our ruling passions. We don't change. We are the same. Soul and love bonds occur for the same vibration. So the Darby and Joan archetype, have always been soulmates, probably through many lifetimes. Often the one will die soon after the other one dies. They will meet each other in the afterlife. This is a good thing if they have a spiritual partnership and they're increasing their vibration. But if it's a complacency thing, that's not such a good thing because, you need tension for spiritual perfection. Excuse me. We can create any reality, but eventually these become boring and dissipate. Now, there's another story that I can tell you about a guy who goes to the other side and he's having somebody help him with navigation. And the fellow says to him, you can just imagine and have anything you want. Just imagine it, it's yours. So he's an avid golfer and he imagines himself in a perfect golf field with the perfect people playing golf. He comes back to his teacher and he says, that's no fun. Every time I hit the ball, it's a hole in one. That's no fun. So the fellow said, try something else. And he says, well, I've always thought it would be nice to have a harem of beautiful women. Maybe I'll do that, although maybe it's bad for my karma. And he does imagine it. And then, sex does happen on the other side, but it happens in the imagination. So being in a sentient body is a huge gift. We will be accountable for recognizing that. So it's interesting caveat to this is that a woman who has a sexual encounter in the astral will have an orgasm and then wake up because the orgasm is felt in their body, but the encounter is happening in the astral and imaginal. So it gives you an idea. A man also will wake up, with a wet dream. So it's kind of an interesting phenomenon to just think about. So Bishop Tutu said, the standards for heaven are pretty low. So the astral, you don't have to work hard to be in the astral, especially the lower astral. And Mary Ellen Kelly used to say, it's like being locked up in Costco, or if you're not from the United States, some big department store. You can have anything you want, but you can't get out. So you don't want to be in the astral. I understand that the higher astral is not a bad place to be, whether the engineers or the physicists can discuss fancy things and what they're going to do the next time around. Remember, the shadow forces have access to all the realms. You can never avoid that. Spiritual masters from any realm can travel freely through all the other realms. To others, the higher realms are invisible. So you may have some of your loved ones you think you're going to be around, but you're not because you won't be able to see them. They can come down to your realm, but you cannot go up. You can't even see that realm. So the astral, the problem is karma is now cut in stone pretty much. There you lose free will. However, we retain thoughts, opinions through which we can help others. So we are able to help others only through their free will. That's why it's so important that we have to ask to receive in order to get help from our guides. And we have to ask very specifically because of the law of free will. The cosmic law of free will is very, very strict. The dark forces don't have to obey that law. Tricksters can do whatever they want, but we do. So this is important because we can do work through another person on the other side who's living through their free will and improve our karmic brownie points, which is good to know. So when I first came and I met my teacher, he said to me, the trouble with your Westerners is you've forgotten your ancestors. Some of you don't even know who they are. You are like papers blowing in the wind. You are unsupported in life by spirits from the other side. So we all have guides, we all have spirits. We can be assisted by them, and we just have to ask to receive, but we have to have a ritual to do it. We have to have an altar. We have to show gratitude when it happens. And when the ancestor, my teacher said to me, when your ancestor helps you do the divination. She helps herself, and you lift her up. In Zulu, it's called pagamisa. You lift her up to another. They've got stuff to do there. So you really help your ancestors by asking them to help you. But remember, you don't want to ask the skeletons in the family closet. You don't want them as your guides. Since there's no free will in the astral, the dead depend on the living to repair, complete, forgive, and release them if such is needed. This is so important because if you don't do it before death or during the transition phase, when they're still earthbound, it's going to be very difficult for you to do it later on. I can suggest a ritual if there's time in the questions for what people can do where they have to clean the slate. But forgiveness is really important because if you are forgiven from your iniquity, from a sin, a karmic sin, you are released. I don't know to what extent, but you're released from that obligation anymore. And it can improve your karmic profile. That's why the dead haunt the living sometimes to try and get forgiveness because they don't want to come back into the same vibration that they had previously and maybe before and before that. So the other thing that will happen to us, we're going to meet with a spiritual tribunal of a higher order, and this spiritual tribunal is governed by truth and love. These are truths that are spiritual truths. Your lawyer can't help you here. They're not the same as the truths we have on this side of the veil. So there's another nice movie I suggest you watch with Meryl Streep called Defending Your Life. And there it's portrayed as a prosecutor and a defendant in a courthouse, but it's a loving thing. They are not there to judge you. You judge yourself by this process of accountability and witnessing. You kind of go through your past life and your past lives if you want to, if there's stuff you have to do, and you see exactly what you've done and what you haven't done that should have been good. So you cannot escape from the truth, but it's a loving thing. It's not Judgment Day or anything like that, and it's portrayed that way quite accurately in Meryl Streep's movie. Of course, she's enlightened, so she bypasses that whole reality. The other guy, not so much, but I suggest it's a funny movie. You'll enjoy it. So these are the basic principles that, as far as I'm concerned, regard to karma, all embraced by love and truth. Did you find your destiny, or at least practice your core strength versus resigning yourself to your fate? These are all similar: healing the planet and all the beings of nature, correcting injustice, doing no harm, helping the planet, trying to do what you can. Auden said it quite brilliantly. He said, "We're here to help others. What on earth others are here for, I do not know," which is kind of funny because I think he's an Englishman. He's got that subtle sense of humor. So subordinating ego to the higher self and also subordinating monkey mind and also shadow to the higher consciousness and being in joy, being happy. Mainly, if you can't do that, be in gratitude. But karma yoga is probably an easy way to fix your karma. Just help others and help the planet, and you'll be okay. If you can do the others as well, all the better. So it's a sleep incubation to improve the soul's path. Now, remember that your ancestors, your guides, are not the same as you remember them. They are now much more refined. The one who was a religious zealot might come and say there are many routes to God. The one who believed there is no afterlife will come and say, look, yeah, I was wrong. So we refine our desires by witnessing. We release from attachments, compulsions, addictions, obsessions, and fears. We can carry new knowledge from both this time, this current lifetime, as well as from previous lifetimes into the next. The trouble is when we come back into the next, we forget it all, but we can remember it as a kind of a deja vu, you know. When you see it, you'll remember it. It's kind of like being in college and you've mastered a concept, and then 10 years later, you can't even remember what it was, and you read it and you've got it immediately. So some of these truths are embedded in your cellular memory, what the Buddhists call soul consciousness, and we can remember them, but that it means going on a spiritual path and trying to remember them actively. And then finally, forgiveness from this side or that side can improve the next incarnation. Again, stressing that we can improve the status of somebody's karma by forgiveness, and it can be resolved if you're in the same vibration, or even if you're not, if the one who's up higher can come down lower and resolve issues, you can be released from that karmic episode. I remember my dad came to me in a dream once and said, you know, your mother and I have resolved our issues. Okay, now remember, if you're interested in guides, they retain their personas, they retain the idiosyncrasies, they don't change. Somebody who's angry, who obviously loved you because he's now your guide, before they passed on, will still be a little intense or maybe a little bit angry in the way they behave, but that doesn't mean they don't love you. They retain their language, of course. They might look a little younger or a little bit older. They retain their dress code. I remember one of my guides who is a lawyer. He would always draw, I knew him in this time as well when he was alive. He always dressed appropriately for law, but when I saw him in the dream time, he was in shorts and a t-shirt and sandals, which is what he liked to wear most of the time. If you're in a high vibration, you may come looking more resplendently, like a prophet is never known in his own town. So somebody you thought was kind of like you, he really isn't, and they may dress a bit differently. They may look younger or older, but you'll know who they are. Remember, they have gained new knowledge, released from prior dysfunctions. You know, somebody might say, you know, why should I bother about my guides? You know, they were illiterate. I've got 5 PhDs, you know. The reality is they know more than you do because they have access to your karmic life book. They know what your destiny is. They can't tell you what it is, but can help nudge you in that direction. They have a broader perspective because they're not localized in space and time. They can bilocate. They can be incredibly useful. So, and they're purified. They're not the same as they were before. So don't reject your guide because maybe he didn't have your education. These are the astral possibilities, three of them. We either reincarnate, three of them, as far as I know, continue as a guide or graduate. So when we reincarnate, we usually do it to refine, or we always do it to refine the higher self. The bloodline is usually perpetuated. We usually come back into the same bloodline again and again, depending on how karma, and we may not want to do that, but we do. The black sheep of the family is usually the white sheep, and I want to give you like a fictitious example of that. Say there's a guy who comes back and he's got his family are multimillionaires. They've got incredibly successful businesses, and he's only interested in music and playing his guitar. So his father comes to him when he's finished high school and says to him, you know, you're very bright, you've got straight A's, you can go to any place you want. Why don't you be an engineer or come into the business and be an MBA? I will sponsor you. You can get into Harvard. I will, take care of your education. I'll buy you a car. I'll take care of your board and lodging. I'll make sure you get on your feet properly until you're making a living. But if you don't want to do that and you want to do music, you're on your own. And the guy gets kicked out of the house. So that's a bad karma on behalf of the father because he has gotten rid of this guy's destiny. He stopped him from doing it. But now he comes back as the black sheep and he knows what he has to do. And he's the white sheep and he's there to try and help them. And he's trying to be an example, but he's still ignored. The black sheep's usually ignored. But he does go off and he becomes a musician and he does what he's supposed to do and his karma is intact. So remember that we don't usually choose who we want to come back as when we're in the astral. We usually are giving some options, but usually we're going to be coming back into a family who's the most able to teach us what we need to learn. May not be that friendly. Now, the other thing they can continue as a guide, I was telling some of the folks before that I have a guide. She's a black woman who was a Sangoma in my previous life, and she helps me with my divination. I cannot work without her. She throws the bones in a kind of telekinesis form so that they form in a non-random readable fashion. I'm the messenger, I just read the message. Without her, I can't work. Well, me, she can't improve her karmic profile. So she's completing work she never did in her past life, and I'm getting tremendous benefit, as are other people, because of her skills and other skills from other ancestors and guides. So they can come back with new assignments in the astral, and that's her particular assignment, and they can improve their karmic profile by doing work. You can also graduate to a higher vibration, maybe by doing this kind of karmic work, and maybe even you can go graduate to the enlightened realm if you kind of haven't made the grade. I remember hearing somebody or reading somewhere that was called Summerland, a transition area where you go over to the enlightened area, kind of like summer school. You fail your class and you stay at home during the summer and you learn and you take the exam and now you pass. But there is a possibility to graduate to another realm. So there's three essential possibilities, and as far as I know. The lower astral spirits can be dysfunctional. Please just remember that just because you have a guide who comes to show, to come, he may not be to your best advantage. These are the kind of guides that are really guides who are maybe show up at seances. They do know stuff because they have access to your comic. They may pretend to be your mother. You don't want to have anything to do with these people. You have to ask them to leave. You'll probably know it in your heart whether you want to have them or not. Um, Astral spirits cannot vibrate to our level. Like I said, you cannot see the upper levels. Those of a higher vibration can hear, respond, and travel to lesser ones. So we can do work if we're in the high vibration with the enlightened realm with dead people, like some of the guides come down to do help, or we can also help the living, and we can. I don't think we ever stop working, quite honestly. We're always doing something. Enlightened beings have full use of their faculties. They do not have to reincarnate, although they may choose to. So if you look at a character like Gandhi, he obviously was an enlightened guy. He came back again, and he knew before that it wasn't going to be fun. It was going to be tough, but he had the option of not doing it, and he took the option of doing it. And no doubt he's back in the causal realm, because that's probably the word he uses, or it's more like a yogi type. So we do have that choice. We can remain, like I said, and support and guide the living or the dead. Now, the sages who have died are present in this world to a greater extent than when they were alive. This is from the Zohar. The causal beings, the Buddhists call them the people from the Pure Land. The Kabbalists call it from the Garden of Eden. They retain free will. Again, I'm repeating it, but it's good to know they can operate freely. There is no need for them to be reborn again. Remember, if you have a causal guide, you are very, very lucky. They're almost 99.9% right. Your astral guides may not be 100% right, but they usually are because they are purified and they have your best wishes at heart. They're trying to keep you in line with who you're supposed to be. And they don't want you to make the same mistakes that they made because, that's not good. Okay, now pathologies of death. Like I said, I came through the back door of this when I did my initiation. And this is just a little sort of purview of some of my bones. They're not all bones, there are other articles. And I learned how to read the dysfunctions of death early on in my initiation. And the bones can pretty much tell you about these pathologies we're going to talk about, including maybe earthbound spirits we've already talked about. So these are the skeletons. The skeletons in our family closet, the unfinished business, where there has been no forgiveness. And they often will haunt the living trying to get forgiveness because of the fact that it has a positive effect on their karma and their future reincarnation. My guide, at least my mentor, called them shades, and it makes sense. You know, it's like a shadow over you. It doesn't feel good. There's nothing good about it. It's like earthbound spirits. It gets in the way of your energy flow, and you don't want it. These are spirits who have abused you either sexually, physically, or emotionally, like the example of the wealthy father. And they have guilt, shame, remorse, the skeletons in the family closet. They are mortified by what they've done because they see what they've done and now they can't escape it. Now, there's some interesting stuff from the Old Testament. The one commandment is honor your father and mother. It doesn't say like them. It doesn't say love them. It doesn't even say have anything to do with them. It just says honor them. We need to honor them with forgiveness. So no matter how much abuse we've suffered, maybe they did do the best they could. Maybe they didn't. I don't know. We wouldn't be on the planet if it wasn't for them and our grandfathers and grandmothers. So we have been given the gift of life because of them. And we owe them one thing, nothing else, forgiveness. There are three reasons to forgive. One is that it's healthful. Now, neuroscience is showing bumps up your T cells. AIDS patients who forgave the person who gave them the virus do much better than those who did not forgive them, who are holding a grudge. When you hold a grudge, you're having an albatross around your neck. They've actually found that cynicism and judgment creates increase in pro-inflammatory factors, which can cause certain diseases. So forgiveness is really important for oneself, never mind the other person. The other reason you want to forgive is it will release the spirit back to their place where they can reconcile with their karma and come back again or not. You know, I don't know what's going to happen with them. Remember, the third reason is they're going to come back probably into the same bloodline. And the other thing from the Bible is the sins of the fathers and mothers and grandfathers and grandmothers are visited upon the children unto the fourth generation. Native Americans might say unto the seventh generation. That doesn't mean if your father robbed a bank, you're responsible. But it does mean that he might come back as a niece, a nephew, a cousin, a grandchild, or so on. And you don't want that, or even a son or daughter, depending on which family he comes back into. And that you would much rather you have somebody with an alcoholic syndrome or something that's been released and forgiven. They're going to have a much better time the next time around. They'll have a better reincarnation as well. So it's good work. You know, all the scriptures, especially Christianity, talks about forgiveness. So it's a critical one that applies in every tradition, no matter where you go. Three reasons to really forgive, and no matter how hard it is, do the forgiveness. Now, just to end off, I want to talk a little bit about foreign intrusions that are not from your family, your bloodline. Now, you don't officially owe them for forgiveness, but there's still a good reason to forgive them. And they can occur from trance states, shamanic rituals, the use of mind-altering plants or drugs, entheogens, they're called, channeling, soul retrieval, seances, and so on. When you open up yourself to the field, remember, going into the field, you need protection. It's like having a computer without malware protection. You don't want that. So if you're going to do any of the stuff, and I do recommend, some shamanic rituals are really very valuable with entheogens, mind-altering plants in sacred ceremony with the right person who can protect it. But be very careful of this unless the person knows what they're doing. They can be invited subconsciously. I remember once doing bones for a guy who had a cowboy spirit that he'd picked up in one of these ghost towns, and he thought it was kind of cool having a cowboy around him. I'd had to tell him that it wasn't, that he needed to, take care of it, which we did. Contact with a corpse. If you look at Leviticus, you'll see that an Israelite was not allowed back into the community unless they had purified themselves. On a couple of occasions, I've gone to visit a Sangoma for counseling, and I would be told, oh, the Sangoma will not see you today. She is officiating at a funeral. She will not touch her bones or do healing until she's cleansed herself. So it's not just in the Bible. Africans have been doing this forever, long before, they even knew there was a Bible. And so the original truths have been there since the beginning of time, probably starting with the Bushmen, who are the first people. Witchcraft and sorcery, I'm not talking about Wicca, which is the light side of the arts. I'm talking about the dark occult side of the arts. A professional witch or sorcerer is a dangerous person. They are professionals, make no mistake, and they practice their arts with profession, and they know what they're doing. Remember also that if they are that good, they're going to be working with what I call the spiritual mafia, and they can create harm. I was talking to the group before we started, saying that one of the things I learned in my initiation was about how to prevent or correct witchcraft. It's ubiquitous. That it's here in America, in the West. It's just better and more proficient in indigenous countries. They have witches and sorcerers instead of bad lawyers. Miscarriage or abortion, we've talked about, really important to do a little ritual to make sure the spirit goes to the right place. Now, this is more prevalent than ever, breach in the aura or energy field, which is now going on big time. I don't know if anybody here watched the thing on CNN about exorcism. But anyway, the priests are saying that they've never had to do so much exorcisms as they have now. Remember, it doesn't matter that if you are possessed by a spirit, no psychotherapy is going to help you whatsoever. You need to have an exorcism. Now, I want to talk more broadly about this, but I just mentioned the CNN program because maybe some of you watched it. Soul sickness, or even worse, soul loss, can occur in cults. If you look at ISIS, and you look at Boko Haram, and you look at Hamas, and you look at Hezbollah, these people, including the drug gangs, the drug gangs from Mexico and all over South America, are satanic in nature. They rape women, they sodomize children, they kill women in front of their children, they kill children in front of their women. I mean, they are beyond repair. True evil exists in the world. It can also occur with severe abuse, trauma, sickness, grief, fear and shame. I don't want to end on a bad note, but this is very important, especially in this time and age. It is possible for a perverse human spirit to come out of the lower realms, a hungry ghost maybe. Called hungry, why? Because when you're in the lower hell realms, your cravings get worse. You crave alcohol, but you can't have it. You crave drugs, but you can't have them. You crave sex. So what do? You possess somebody with a broken aura. It can't happen to anybody here in this audience, but this somebody with a completely broken aura, soul loss. They can come in, take over the body, and enjoy sentient pleasures. So to know that this can occur, I think, is important in this time in terms of these foreign intrusions. And it's not going to be common, but don't discount it. These things are real. So I think I'll probably leave that subject alone because I don't think we need to end on a terrible note. But I only mentioned it because of what's going on in the planet. And I know I'm not allowed to do this kind of work. My ancestors say it's too dangerous. So if you're a Christian, you're in good, somebody, you're in good standing. But the people do a lot of damage. For all somebody who's doing a mass killing may be told that God is telling them to kill people because they're evil or something like that. Okay, on to other things. Summary. Conscious living, prepare for it. Death and dying, non-attachment, surrender, let go, be in a good frame of mind, use some method of keeping yourself in big mind, not in monkey mind. Remember karma, reconciliation, and reincarnation. We don't get away with anything at the end of the day. The astral realm is not necessarily a good place to be. I hear the upper astral is quite nice. I don't know. The causal or the pure land or whatever your tradition is where you want to be. All these things, shades, intrusive spirits, earthbound spirits, remember they do exist. And, whether they exist, whether you know about them or not, you believe in them or not, or do anything about it or not. They're not going to be a big part of anybody here. But because there's so much conflict in the planet today, I think it's worth just talking about. So what I want to do now, I just want you to just take a breath. There's a lot of information there. This will be recorded. I wanted to give you a purview, like a gestalt of, what I've been taught. And I know some people have different ideas, and, I'm sure they all are correct. As long as they're sort of more or less the same, they're correct. They're just said in different ways. And I want to just play a song that came to me in a dream. I'm not a musician. I go to South Africa to do the music. And my musician is very good. And I do sing because he's got a better voice than me. But the ancestors say I have to sing the songs. So this one is pretty much about what we've been talking about briefly. But it's to put you in a good vibration, because there's nothing you can't do here. You can change things, you can prepare, you can be, you don't have to adopt Buddhism, but you can go on a spiritual life, you can have a spiritual practice, you can improve your karma, all can be good. And you can strive for the higher astral, which is apparently fun, or even the causal. So I want you to sit up straight and close your eyes and relax your face and relax your forehead. Relax your jaw, relax your neck and your shoulders. Breathe in white light and breathe out thick black smoke, and breathe in the white light of all the truths that they have given us today, the ancestors and others, and breathe out the thick black smoke of anything you want to get rid of, and maybe focus on anything that you want to do work on. That's come along that's sort of pertinent to you. It may be just one or two things, and or follow the breath or follow the song, doesn't matter. Just do whatever works for you. Deep breath in and out, white light in, thick black smoke out. At the end of the day, we will not have a say. We will just reap what we sow. It's never too late to let love guide our fate. It will lead us on the way. Coming home, 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 coming home. It's cause and effect is the name of the game. Your karma is all you can blame. So follow your path with gusto and laugh, and don't hurt anyone. Coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home,
I'm coming home,
coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home. If the soul is now pure, it need no more endure, and can live in a state of bliss. If not yet complete, it will have to repeat lifetimes ahead to be sure. Coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home,
I'm coming home,
coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home, coming home. And when you're ready, you can slowly come back into yourself. Take some deep breaths. And I'll hand it back to Yvonne.
Thank you, Dr. Cumes, for an absolutely profoundly beautiful presentation and that incredibly beautiful music. Thank you for having the courage to play one of your songs for us. It was really, really, really beautiful. So I will invite people now, if you have some questions for Dr. Cumes, to please put them in the chat, and I'll be happy to ask them for you. I'm going to start with one of my questions. You had mentioned a ritual for forgiveness. If one of your loved ones has passed over and there's a need for forgiveness and they're no longer, hanging around, what do you recommend as a ritual for forgiveness?
Yeah, that's an important one. What I recommend they do, no matter how bad it is and how difficult, is to write a negative letter about all the stuff that happened to you on account of this person that you are holding on to. This isn't psychotherapy, although it can be as well, but it's going to be more of a spiritual therapy. So you want everything, no matter how trivial. If you want, you can even get some body work, if anything, because our memories are sometimes imprinted in the body work, especially if you know somebody who does good, intuitive body work. And write it all down because it's a way of getting rid of not only the stuff that you want to get rid of, but also of getting rid of the spirit who's haunting you. Because I said, as before, there's nothing good about being haunted. So then you spend some time, you write it all out. Nothing is too, trivial. That's really important. And then what you do is take some sacred medicine, like either dried sage or cedar or anything that's, sacred to you. and appeal to whoever, whatever your belief system is, who your guides are, or Jesus, or God, or whoever, because you want, things that are done in a ritual form, especially with a sacred plant, are what's called a container in African understanding. And when you send a ritual, it means you really are committed. It means that you've written it in writing, like you might have said before, I thought I forgave them, but you really didn't. If you say you think you forgave them, you haven't done it. So even if you say you think you did, you should probably do this ritual. They want it in writing from the other side, the spiritual tribunal. So when you finish, you burn the letter, you wrap up the ashes up in toilet paper. If it's hard for you to go anywhere, you can flush it down the toilet, and you say, "This is all water under the bridge. You are released from any karmic implications on my behalf." And then you walk away. You walk out of the bathroom. You do not look back. If you look back, the ancestors are going to say you're not sure. That's an indication that you're not clear. Better still, if you can, and you have a river or a lake or an ocean near you, take the wrapped up toilet paper. It is biodegradable, and go to the beach or the river, preferably when nobody is around, and throw it in the water. And then you say the same thing. This is water under the bridge. You're released from any karmic implications on my behalf, but I don't. You need to go back, and I want to be on. You can actually say you don't want them to be around, but that's probably best not to confuse it. You can do that later to your altar and so on. Don't put them on your altar. You don't want them around. And then again, you walk away, do not look back. Don't even drive. When you drive, don't look back and go home. And I found that to be very useful in my practice. Clearly, when I do it for my clients, my ancestors help as well. But if you tell your guides or your belief system, they can also do the same. And if nothing else, it'll help you release some of the anger and the distress and the grief and the betrayal and the resentment that you have. It's worth doing.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. I find that fascinating that because intuitively I have been doing this for many, many years in my life. And
Uh,
I would tend to go to Niagara Falls, which is not
oh,
far from me, and toss it over the
yeah,
falls.
yeah, that's great. I mean, that's on steroids. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you. We have a question from Marina, and she'd like to know, is the astral realm the only realm where we don't have free will?
Like I said, the astral realm is like countless realms, yes, and that's the one we don't have free will. The lower realms, we also, we basically, if you really are in the lowest realms, you may not have even a chance of reincarnation. And that's why possession sometimes occurs. But the astral has countless vibrations. So, in all of those vibrations, no matter how high up you are, say you're a bodhisattva and you really have done everything great, but they feel you need to be slightly more refined. You'll be in the high astral. I think. I mean, I can't speak for Buddhism. I'm speaking from what my own teaching. But you may have to come back again and just refine a few things before you can go to the causal realm or the pure land, type of thing. But the honest truth, I have a few clues given to me by the answers. I don't think anybody really knows. Maybe we know more when we go to the other side, but the reality is everything's a total mystery. Somebody once said, anybody who's not confused here doesn't know what's going on.
It's an excellent way of putting it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Um, so we have a question from Tim. He'd like to know, how can we know if a dream of a deceased friend or loved one is actually them, their spirit, or it's just the creation of our own mind?
Well, that's a very good question, and I think it'll lead on to the story that I'm going to tell because, I don't believe that it's them. I know it's them. I have no doubt it's them. And that's the problem with our intellectual side of, being a Westerner. is that we don't have, our intellectual capacity overrides our intuitive capacity because that's our training. And it gets in the way of transformation, gets in the way of operating. So if you see your ancestor in a dream, you can be pretty sure that they are coming to either just support you or to help you or to maybe give you some advice. They can come in different ways. If they can't, if they don't have the skill to script a dream, they may come as a power animal. They can manipulate objects, they can manipulate animals. So you might have a hummingbird who comes around and is not behaving in a normal fashion. They were sort of circling around your head or something. That's your ancestor. That's not normal. They usually have a safe space that they avoid human contact from. So that's another way they can send messages. They can also copy and paste things into your psyche, and you may wake up in the morning and have a complete, oh, this is amazing. I'm so smart. I know exactly what to do with this problem. Meanwhile, they told you at nighttime, in the dream time, they put it in your psyche. You wake up in the morning with the answer. So the more you ask them, the more you honor them, the more you make an altar, the more you show gratitude, the more they will come. But I know there are people who are still, and it may bring me to another story that I think is worth telling about proof of heaven.
Mhm.
I had a very good friend. He was a physician. He was a GP locally, and then he retired and he went down to the Amazon, to the jungle, to minister to the Indians down there. And he got support from Direct Relief International in Santa Barbara. And he was doing, Albert Schweitzer kind of work. And he was a like-minded spirit. And every time he came back from the jungle, he would call me. We would go and have lunch. And what happened then was that, we were kindred spirits. I was developing my center in South Africa, and he was doing his thing there. But one day he called me, and I said, "Great, Lou. That's fantastic. When are we going to have lunch?" And he said, "Dave, things have changed. I have inoperable liver cancer. I'm not going to have a transplant. I've just decided to let it go." So I offered him a divination. And I said, "Look, why don't you come and have a divination? Maybe there's something you need to know." And he said, "That would be great." So he came, we did the divination, and everything was fine. I mean, he was perfectly ready and all the rest of it. There was no unfinished business. And I said, "Can you do me a favor? I'm not sure you'll be able to, but I have people that don't believe in any of the stuff that I'm talking about. It would be nice to have some proof." So he said, I said, "Can you come to me in a dream and give me a sign or a symbol so that people will know that this isn't just a figment of my dream world?" And he said, "Yes, I'll try my best because they can't always come. Depends on the circumstances, it depends on their expertise, it depends on the receptivity of the person. And clearly it can't come to me because then it's not going to be proof." So Adrian is the person who manages my business, and I didn't tell her about this, but she has dreams for me, and she has a Native American background and is a really good dreamer. And we always share dreams in the office when I come and I say, "Did you have a dream?" And I'll tell her if I had one. The other one is Mary Ellen Kelly, who I mentioned, who's an extraordinary dreamer. But I couldn't use Mary Ellen Kelly because she didn't know Lou and she didn't know what he looked like. So if he came to her, it would be more difficult for her. She wouldn't know who to talk to. So anyway, Lou died, and we heard about it. And I didn't say anything to Adrian, but every morning I came to the office and we shared dreams. Now there was nothing from Lou. Then one day she said to me, "No, Lou came in a dream." And I said, "Oh, really?" I didn't want to, edit it. What happened? Well, he came. It was kind of funny. He was in a sepia color, and he looked like, he was pretty dressed really casually, kind of like I described my lawyer ancestor. I said, "Did he say anything? Did he have anything?" She said, "No, no, he didn't." So I thought, well, he tried to come through, but Adrian's not really, she's a good dreamer, but she's not that good. She couldn't get the beads that he was going to come with. He was supposed to come with his beads as a sign, his meditation beads. So I forgot about it. Then one day, 6 o'clock in the morning, I get a call from Mary Ellen Kelly, and she said to me, "Dave, do you know Lou?" And I won't mention his last name. And I said, yes. She said, there's an article about him and his work in the jungle and how these two people are now taking over his place. And he came to me in a dream last night. I wouldn't have known who he was except for the article in the paper. So I said, wow, what happened? He said, well, it was kind of interesting. He came in the sepia color and he had shorts on and a t-shirt and flip-flops. And he had these beads around his neck. And he said to me, tell Dave, these are not just beads. Tell Dave these are not just beads. And the third time. So he did come through, and it depends. She's an extraordinary channel. Adrian is really good, and I'm not as good as Adrian, but she came through with a dream. So I hope that helps you in future. The thing is, the answer to say if you don't believe in something, you're never going to see it. In order to see it, you've got to believe in it. So I strongly suggest, that Einstein said there are two ways to live your life. One is everything is a miracle. The other is that nothing's a miracle. It's a miracle. Accept it and, have a party for your ancestors. Thank your ancestor. Make an altar to him and ask to receive. And you might be surprised your life might change.
That is absolutely awesome. Thank you, Dave. I love that line. Look at life as a miracle. Everything is
Yeah.
a miracle. I didn't know Einstein said that.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Mm.
We have another question here from Bethany, who thanks you prolifically here. She said, you mentioned practice your core strength to prevent karma. She says, how do you know what your core strength is?
It's a good question because a lot of us have difficulty, including me. I was telling the group before, it took me a long time to come back to what my core strength was. It's not really what you think it was, but whatever it is that you do well is your core strength. That if you are gifted at something that you do well, doesn't matter what it is, then do that to help other people and you will improve your karma. If you're not sure what that is, you may have a lot of talents, then use them all. Many people have got many talents. So the other thing is, if you don't know what it is, just help people anyway, because that'll be karma yoga and that'll be good. But the other thing you can do is think of what you wanted to be in when you were a kid or a teenager. What was your dream? I mentioned the guy about the musician. You may have wanted to be a musician, but life took over, and then you didn't do it, and now you've forgotten about it. Now, what you can do is with me, it was like trial and error. I kept, it was like the three bears for me. I tried this bed and it was too hard. I tried the other bed, it was too soft. And then I found the right bed. And then I was there okay for a while. And then I found, this is now lumpy. I need to go somewhere else. So I went from wilderness healing to meeting sangomas to being told that had to be initiated to being initiated. And then after initiating, having these songs in my dreams, which I never dreamed of, and then connecting with Mary Ellen, and then having, three genres of spirits kind of counseling us. So just do the best you can. It's not easy. I'm not trying to say, and it wasn't easy for me. It took me like 15 years to almost get there. But just be patient with yourself. And sometimes you can go to a psychic who can connect with your ancestors, or you can find a shaman who can maybe ask and see what is your core strength. They may be able to tell you, but they may not because of free will. But sometimes it's just a question of trial and error, and you've got to follow the clues. It's like a treasure hunt. You've got to go from one clue to the next clue. So, for instance, the man with the dream about there's a clue there. I'm around, I'm here. Maybe you need to talk to me more. You need to develop a friendship. You may not be able to see me, you may not be able to hear me, but I'm here and I'll try my best to help you, in your life. And you give gratitude. So, the one way you could start is with an ancestor practice for the loved ones. You might start to get messages. The other thing is, if you think of yoga, there are four yogas. There's karma yoga, there's bhakti yoga, there's raja yoga, and there's uh, what's the other one? Jnana yoga. So intellectual yana yoga, if you like the intellect, then that's the teacher archetype. If you're not sure of who you're going to be, yoga or Buddhism is really good. You can follow any one of those things. If you want to do service, you do karma yoga, the Mother Teresa archetype. If you don't want to teach and you want to do service and you really are good at meditation, you may want the other yoga, the path of the Buddha, the Raja Yoga, which is the most difficult path, control of the mind. And finally, you can be like the Sufi mystics and you can do devotional yoga, love of God, love of Jesus, love of the divine, um, you know, that sort of devotional yoga, like David the psalmist in the Bible. The other thing is there are basically four archetypes. You're either a teacher archetype, a healer archetype, a warrior archetype, or a visionary archetype. So Yvonne, for instance, I don't know enough about Yvonne, but from what I know from her, she's a warrior archetype, and she's very good at it because look what she's doing with these sessions. But she's also a visionary archetype. She's like a sage, a guru, or whatever. The visionary archetype can be the hardest one. It can be, the musician, the artist. It's hard to make a living that way. That's why often you slip by the wayside. Everybody, if they're a musician, wants to be like Paul Simon and Sting, but they're not going to be. All they want to do is God only wants you to be all of who you can be. That's all you can do. And then to help yourself and be happy with it, and to help others by playing your guitar and making other people happy. You don't have to be Sting. He doesn't judge according to results or anything like that. It's all about intention and effort and the passion of your effort. So you can be pretty mediocre by, our kind of Western terms and really be fulfilling your karma and doing all your work. So I would look to those four archetypes: healer, teacher, warrior, visionary. See, maybe you fit there. Or look to the four yogas and maybe join some kind of a sangha or, a spiritual sangha and see where that takes you. But it's not easy, I'm sorry to say.
Thank you. Well, that was a beautiful answer. We have lots of additional questions in the chat, but this is going to have to be our last question, and
Okay.
it's a very important one, I think. And this is from, oh, I'm having trouble reading the name, Shitsangsu, I believe. Um, he or she says, thank you for sharing this, David. I learned a lot. A question I have is on the point of forgiveness. We are often asked to be the better person and forgive. But should this be done in situations of really intense harm, such as abuse, severe parental neglect? What if somebody does not deserve forgiveness? If being honest, something about this feels just unjust and unaligned, if it feels wrong to forgive someone, it feels wrong that we would suffer in the astral realm for being unwilling to forgive someone who has so much wronged them in this incarnation.
No, very good questions, all of them. That's a tough one, but you know, the thing about having that situation, it's going to be extremely difficult to give forgiveness. And I acknowledge that. The best thing you can do is take care of yourself. And if you can, walk away, walk away. I think, I mean, I don't know, I'm not a Christian, but I think when Jesus said, turn the other cheek, what he meant was just walk away. Don't oppose. But I also like the biblical one, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. If somebody is harming you, you've got to defend yourself. And if you can't defend yourself, there's that funny movie about a fish called Wanda, where the guy says to the other guy, I boxed for Oxford. And he said, I killed for the CIA. And, clearly the people you cannot come up against. So you just walk away. But for yourself later on, you try as best you can to have nothing more to do with that person ever, 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 ever. But for yourself and for your karma, it's not your karma. You're not going to have any karmic blight because you didn't forgive. No. but he might hang around you if it's an ancestor asking for, and you don't want to have him around, then it's going to be like they're there in death and in life. So it's useful. You want to forgive them. So do the letter, tell them you need to go. I don't want to see you again. Be very polite because you don't offer a challenge. But no, that's a very difficult one. The best thing you can do is to find some way to escape that, and in the moment, maybe turn the other cheek because, it's only going to make things worse. And hopefully, you can remove yourself, and maybe in your lifetime, you don't need to do any forgiveness. But what I'm saying is that if you are being haunted by the dead, it's good to forgive them. So the same things apply. It's very difficult. I mean, I'm not trying to say it's easy. The one thing about the Africans, even our African American people here, they have an amazing ability to forgive that I think is in their DNA. You'll have this guy who's spent 30 years in jail, and he'll come out of jail, and I'm talking about the United States, and he'll say, "I forgive the person who did it to me." It's just something I think inherently part of the African psyche. I don't know for sure that it's a generalization, but I found Africans to be very forgiving. And I know my mentor said to me, no matter how difficult it is, you've got to try and forgive. But it's not about your karma. You don't have to forgive from the karma point of view. That's the karma of the other person. But I would say, don't forgive. Walk away. Don't look back. You know, um, defend yourself for sure, and don't forgive. And if you find yourself after they're dead having issues with the kind of things, malaise, bad luck, bad dreams, a feeling that somebody's around you, a haunting in a sense, maybe even them is showing up in the dream. You need to see somebody to get rid of it, to get rid of that spirit. And that would involve forgiving them. Because basically, at the end of the day, they don't get away with anything. They do not get away with anything. So that is the one good thing. It would be nice if karma came around more quickly. And sometimes it does, but mostly it doesn't. Often these people live out their lives perfectly well. They are supported by the dark forces. If you look at people like Idi Amin, Robert Mugabe, they lived out their life in prosperity. Putin, is working with a spiritual mafia. The guy from North Korea, and others. So that's an aside, but I would just say if you can't forgive, don't worry about it. I would do the letter anyway, but just throw it away and walk away. Don't look back to release all of that anger and betrayal and bitterness and disappointment. And then later on, if you ever know that they've passed on and nothing happens, you don't need to forgive them. But if they're haunting you, I would say then, do the necessary and repeat the letter again. Um, I think that's the best I can do under the circumstances. It's a very hard question. I relate completely. I'm not sure that I would, if I'd experienced something like that, it would be very difficult for me as well. But no, please don't think it's anything to do with your karma. It's their karma. It's your good. It's your immune system. It's you taking the albatross off your back. It's actually interesting, the Native American song. I'm going to lay down my burden down by the riverside. I ain't going to carry, I ain't going to carry on war no more. There's something warring inside of you. So get rid of them, get away from them. Do the letter and try and your best to forgive because it's healthful. And get the albatross off your neck. Don't give them the power of having that grudge.
Mhm.
That's the best I can do, but I know it's not easy.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Dr. Coombs, for an absolutely fabulous presentation. Was absolutely riveting, inspirational, very informative. Thank you. I know a lot of people are going to want to watch this video once it's up on YouTube. Thank you.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. It's been really fun, especially talking to all of you before. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Go well, everybody. And it's all good. It's all going to be fine. Don't worry. It's all good.